So the last thing that we're going to look at is the actual energy analysis, and this is where you get a lot more hard data. The other stuff is nice graphically, I guess, and gives you some initial sort of feedback on what your building's going to do performance-wise. What we see next will be a lot more math, a lot more calculation, and a little bit more feedback on the performance and the cost even of what your building is going to sort of entail over the course of a year. To do that, we're going to click on this button right here. So we're on the Analyze tab, and we're going to click on Enable Energy Model. It'll think a little bit, and then you'll see that what it's going to do at this stage is it's going to take our generic building that just had the floor plates described, and it's going to actually start to break this thing up to something that resembles a building a little more closely. So we're going to see a representation of window openings and glazing. And notice that what it's also done is it's created these zones, and you can see that there's a line set back from the perimeter of the building. And that just kind of sort of anticipates where a core would be, so where your elevators and your other services might be. We can customize that. That's what we're going to do first. We're just going to click on right next to where we activated the energy model here, enabled it. Next to that, we're going to see a button here that says Energy Settings. So these are default sort of overall values for the building. And you can see here that it's tracking a lot of the data that we already entered, like, for example, the location here, London. It's also got building type listed here. Why would that be relevant? What impact is that going to have on our energy?
They know this one.
Good, yeah, so that's the big one. So occupancy and power usage. So what's the difference between an office and let's say a religious building? Yeah, exactly. So most religious buildings won't see the kind of use, the regular 8 to 5 type use that you'll see in an office building. There's other options here as well. We've got multifamily. We've even got penitentiary. So if your pavilion for London is going to be a penitentiary, can't imagine that'll go over well with Jesse, but you might want to choose that option. So yeah, the main issue is occupancy. What hours of the day, how many people, these are things that are calculated in. And I believe this data comes right from the ASHRAE manuals. And you can also see that the location is entered, the ground plane is entered, and then we're not going to worry about the detailed model settings, but we'll skip down to energy model. So what I said about the offset for the core, that's the perimeter offset. Right now it's fairly shallow. You can see it doesn't really occur that far away from the perimeter of the building. So if we wanted to increase that to get closer to the middle, the center of the building, we could just change the setting maybe to 8,000 millimeters. Let's see how that looks. You would know this information, of course. If you didn't want to have a core there, if you just had like a single-story building or whatever, you want to just kind of do like a glass pavilion, you would just deselect this right here. So you wouldn't see any division of perimeter zones. And then, yeah, you could just set this value. You'll want to set it high so that that kind of comes closer to the middle of the building. The other values that we can manipulate are the target percentage glazing. It's at 40 right now. Just to kind of see how this updates, change 40 to, let's say, 60. Hit enter and then apply. And there you can see that those glazing, that representation of that glazing on the perimeter changed, so that's a little larger.
How would you model like a
We'll get to that. I'll show you a custom way to model these openings. This is pretty generic, obviously. It's reasonably accurate as it is. You only really need to know how much of your building face is open, is glazed. The exact location of these might not be a big factor, but I'll show you how to customize that later on. Now you can adjust your target sill height. Let's set it to something like 750, and then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to check this box here which says glazing is shaded, and we can also describe how large we want those shading assemblies to be, how deep. So what you'll see now when I click apply is that it'll put some shading devices over the windows, and then I click OK and it's ready to analyze. I'm going to back step here a little bit, just wanted to show you what the overall potential was for these settings. But we're going to click on Energy Settings and just kind of set things back to where they were. I'll deselect the Glazing is Shaded button, and I'll put 60 back to 40, and I'll click OK, and that's what our building looked like originally. When that's all set up, then you're ready to do some analysis. So right next to the Enable Energy Model button that we already used is the Analyze Mass Model. Click on that, and you'll see that what happens here is that it starts to kind of prepare this for sending it to the Autodesk servers, where it's going to analyze it based on all that weather data and give you some feedback on your energy issues. So I'm going to name this just something generic, and I'll click Continue. And then down below here, you'll notice that this slider bar loads this thing up. So it's packaging it, and it's going to send it off to the Autodesk servers. And then when it finishes, you'll see that disappear. It'll look like nothing's happening. But if you click on this button right here, Results and Compare, it'll bring up a window, and this is the connection to the servers. And there's the shameless self-promotion logo right there, just to remind you that this is the all-powerful Autodesk. And down below here, you'll see the progress of that report that you submitted. It's probably not going to go too quick, especially if there's a bunch of us all submitting at the same time. If there's not much traffic, it tends to run through pretty quick. It might not finish in the time that we've got here. But while it works on that, I'll just show you what it's going to generate. It gives you a whole bunch of data about your building. Whoops, not that one. So there's a sample building, and in this case it happens to be comparing one version of the building to a slightly adjusted version of the building. And it's going to run through a whole bunch of data with regards to the amount of electricity that's going to be used by this building, how much energy or how many BTUs it's going to require to heat it. It's going to talk about what the cost might be, so it's going to take into account what local utility values might be. And it will even spit out some graphics here to describe things like your carbon dioxide emissions. And ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to set up an initial situation. So your building was described as fairly simple, and then you're going to do some other variations. You're going to manipulate the building a little bit, run it again, and see if you can get these numbers to come down. So that's the kind of information that I would submit in your lead report. Basically show maybe what your building looks like, and show some other alternatives and ways of getting those overall costs down. Now if we go back to Results and Compare, yeah, it's still working away at 35%, so it's not going to finish up quickly, but give it another 10 minutes, it'll wrap up, and then you'll see those graphics right on screen.